Hey everybody, it's Lon.TV, and we're taking a look today at the Acer Switch 11V. This is a 2-in-1 detachable from Acer. Pretty nice little unit. This reminds me a lot of the Switch 10 that we looked at about a year ago. Very similar in its overall design. What I'm seeing here is a lot of manufacturers taking lower end devices that were running on the Atom processor, which is a very low powered mobile chipset, and putting in Core M processors, which are also fanless and can be built into similar size computers, but are much more powerful. So you'll see that when we do some of the benchmarks later, that this one is a bit faster than some of the other Switch models that we have looked at in the past here. Now I should mention, in the interest of full disclosure, that this is a loaner from Acer. I will be returning it to the Acer mothership when we're done with this review. They have no editorial input into this video, nor are they approving it before it is posted. Nobody is paying for this review besides my Patreon supporters, of course, and all the opinions you're about to hear are my own. These are my standard disclaimers that I do on every YouTube video so that you know where I'm coming from and what my relationships are with the brands that I review here on the channel. You can see more about that in the video description down below. So as I mentioned, this is a detachable. You've got an 11.6-inch IPS touch display, which is running at 1920 by 1080, so full HD. In a very small screen size, which means it is a relatively high DPI display. You're going to see a little bit of flickering on screen right here. You won't see that in real life. It's just how the screen is interacting with my camera at its current brightness level. You've got 4 gigabytes of RAM, 128 gigabyte SSD, that Core M processor. It's the previous generation chip, so it's running at 800 megahertz to 1.0 gigahertz, depending on what you're doing with it. You also get wireless AC on board, and it weighs about 3.2 pounds altogether with the keyboard. That's 1.4 kilograms. The tablet portion itself weighs 1.7 pounds, or about 771 grams if you are a follower of the metric system. Now, one of the things that I like about this design that we saw on the Switch 10, which is a little bit smaller than this one, but similar design, is how really nice this latching mechanism is here. So when you want to get the keyboard docked back with the screen, you just kind of line it up and the magnet just kind of takes it in, and it really latches on automatically for you really securely. In fact, it's very difficult to get the keyboard to shake off. You really have to put some pressure down on it to detach it. Now, with a bulk of the weight of the machine kind of in the screen here, if you push the screen back too far, it will tip over this way. So there is a lot of weight on the back of the screen here. So you hit a certain point where your keyboard will start lifting off your desk, and eventually it will keel over like so. Now, this is a 2-in-1, so many 2-in-1s we've looked at have that flip over screen. This one has the same settings you can put the screen into, but you have to detach it to get some of those modes. So if you wanted to do the keyboard in the back routine, what you have to do is take the screen off and then reattach it in the back like this, and you can get that multimedia look to it. So you can kind of do the movie thing on the plane. You can also put it into tent mode like so. Sometimes the latch will come off a little bit, but once you get it secured again, you're good to go in tent mode as well. So you have all the same options you would have on a normal 2-in-1, but you do have to remove the screen to get it into that rear-facing mode. The screen will not flip all the way around like it does on other 2-in-1s. And the starting price on this for the one that we're looking at today is about $550 to $600, depending on where you are looking online. So a little bit more than the lower powered device, but a little bit less than we've seen on some of the other Core M devices that are out there. The keyboard is my only big complaint here. It doesn't feel all that great. The keys are not full size, and they really don't have a nice feel to them. So I didn't like the keyboard on the Switch 10. I'm not too crazy about this one either. Acer keyboards, by and large, have not been good to me, at least as far as their comfort level is concerned. So I'm not too crazy about that. The trackpad is also a little bit too springy for me as well, so not the best trackpad either. So I wish the input mechanism on the keyboard and trackpad was a little bit better. There isn't much in the way of ports on the keyboard base. You do have a USB 3.0 port down here, so you can plug in a external hard drive or something else that you want to put into that spot there. You also get on this side a USB port in the micro format, so you can get one of those USB OTG cables to convert it to a full-size port if you wish. Those are pretty cheap, about $2 or so. You have a micro HDMI output there, a micro SD card there, as well as a combo headset microphone jack on this side. So a lot of the standard Windows tablet accoutrements. You get a power button here, your volume rocker, and you have a Windows button here instead of a capacitive button on the front of the screen. So, and I actually prefer this, having the Windows button here, because on a lot of these devices, they put the Windows button in the bezel, and when you're holding the tablet, you're actually hitting the start menu every time. So it's nice to have that off to the side side and away from you there. And on the back here, you got a little camera. Not the best thing in the world, but it's a camera if you want to take a quick picture for, not for photography purposes, but maybe just for note-taking purposes. You've got that there, and then a passable web camera here on the front as well. And battery life on this is about 5 to 6 hours, depending on what you're doing with it. You want to turn the screen brightness down, of course. If you're doing things like movie watching or game playing, that will certainly eat the battery up a little bit more. So you might get closer to 4.5 hours when you're doing more intensive kinds of tasks. Like every Core M device we've looked at, this is fanless. You will get a little bit of heat on the back of the tablet here when it's on. It's nothing to be concerned about. The processor will throttle itself if things get too hot, but I haven't seen any real performance degradation with extended use either. So let's take a look now at some of its performance, and we'll run our usual barrage of tests on it to see how it does in the real world. So let's take a look at some web browsing here. We'll load up Microsoft Edge browser and run over to my YouTube channel and see how everything comes up on screen. So it does render very quickly. You've got wireless AC built in addition, of course, to that Core M processor, so things will be faster than they might be on the Switch 10, which is powered by the Atom chip. We are running the video here full screen at 1080p. It comes up very quickly, no drop frames. Everything is working as it should. And high-end video formats like 4K and 1080p 60 frames per second video also play fine on here. However, in some circumstances, like using YouTube, I do recommend using the Edge browser over Google Chrome because Edge is better optimized for Intel's hardware-based video decoding functions that for some reason Google Chrome isn't supporting fully just yet. That'll probably change over time, but as of now, Edge is a little bit better for browsing certain types of video. On the Octane benchmark test, which measures how well it does all the web browsing functions, we get a score of 19,519. That is in line with other Core M processors from this particular processor generation, so it does keep up quite well with many of those other computers, and it's a lot faster than some of the Atom-based chips we have looked at on other low-cost Windows machines. Now let's take a look at word processing. We'll load up our newsletter template in Word and see how fast everything renders up on screen here. So as we're scrolling through the document, we will see how well it does. So as I'm paging down here, you can see things do render very quickly. Again, because we have that Core M chip versus an Atom processor on there, it won't be as fast as like an i5 or an i7 processor, but you are able to do things pretty well. My screen here is very tiny because I have turned down the scaling for some game compatibility issues, so that is why everything looks really tiny on screen, but you can change that, of course, in the Windows settings to give you a little bit more visibility of the text you're looking at. And speaking of games, let's take a look at Minecraft and see how it does at gaming. All right, so let's take a look at Minecraft here. We're getting frame rates in the high 30s, low 40 frames per second, as you can see up there in the corner, depending on what's happening on screen. We're running at 1920 by 1080. This is the Java version of Minecraft, so the Windows 10 version, of course, will run better, but most people run this version right now, which is why we're testing it here. And of course, we got some weather going on here right now. This does have the Optifine performance-enhancing plugin installed to give us a little bit of a performance boost, but as you can see, very playable Minecraft here again because we have a slightly faster processor than some of those lower end ones we typically look at in this form factor. One thing to note though is the USB 3 port here. So I usually have a portable SSD that I have installed for all of my apps that I use for testing computers out. It's very efficient just to have a little disk I can plug in. Got a lot of Steam stuff loaded up on there, really fast and efficient. However, what I noticed is that sometimes I have to detach the screen after plugging the hard drive in and reattach it for it to recognize the USB port on here. So I don't know if it's just a glitch on this particular one that I have, but a lot of times I have to disconnect the screen and reconnect it to get that USB port to get active on there. So that was the only issue I really noticed here in some of my testing with the device. On the 3D Mark benchmark test, which is a little bit more strenuous than a Minecraft session might be, we get a score of 3019. So it's better than some of our $200 PCs, but it's still not good enough for very high-end modern games, so no GTA 5 or anything like that, but some of the lower-end stuff like Minecraft and some casual games will work very well on here and will work better than you would see on a $200 PC. So that is the Acer Switch 11V, and this one is really designed for people that like the form factor and thin design of a Atom-based fanless PC, but want something faster. And this one certainly will deliver better performance with the Core M processor. You do pay a little bit more for that performance. So again, this one runs between $550 and $600 or so. However, it's actually less expensive than a lot of other competing Core M-based devices on the market that have a similar detachable or 2-in-1 form factor. So you do get a little bit more for less money with this, but it's not as refined perhaps as those other devices are. So it does kind of feel a lot like that less expensive Switch 10. The keyboard and trackpad in particular are areas that I think could be improved. But if you're looking for performance in a 2-in-1 tablet detachable form factor, I think this is a pretty good value as you see it. I'm very impressed with the quality of the display. I really like how firmly this docking mechanism works on here. So it really is a nicely constructed device. I just wish they spent a little bit more time on the keyboard and trackpad. This is Lon.TV, and thanks for watching. This channel is brought to you by my Patreon supporters, including gold level supporter Shabib. If you want to help the channel, you can by contributing as little as $1 a month. Head over to Lon.TV/Patreon to learn more. And don't forget to subscribe. Visit Lon.TV/S.